Alright guys, I want to do a simple mod to one of these Sega Genesis systems that's going to let it play Japanese games. It's going to put the system into Japanese region mode. But first things first, there's many different variations of the Model 1 Genesis. I've shown the really early ones. The really early ones say high definition graphics on top. They have the extension port on the back. Something like this one. This one does not say high definition graphics on the back, and it does not have the extension port on the back. But if you compare, you'll see the other ports line up the same, and there's basically just an empty spot here where the extension port would have been. And this one is a very late Model 1. If we look at the back, you'll see they actually moved everything over, okay? So instead of having the extension port here, it has the RF channel select switch and the RF and the DIN connection and the power jack has all been moved over. So see, the power jack on these two is right on the very far edge, and on this one at the bottom you've got the blank space here. This one is a no-no for this mod. If you want to do this mod and you want to do it easily, this one is a no-no. These late model Genesis 1 Model 1s have a motherboard that's very similar to the Model 2 inside. So this is one of the very late Model 1s, just before they switched to the Model 2. If you can find one of these earlier Model 1s, either with the blank spot here or with the extension port here, or if it says high definition graphics on top, you know it's one of the very early Model 1s, and it's much easier to do these modifications to. So once you get the 6 screws taken out, open it up like this, sort of hinge it at the front and lift it from the back, and that's because of course the power LED is in these ones. Okay, so there's 7 black screws around the outer edge of this metal plate. There's also a grounding screw here, and there's also a metal tab here that you'll have to bend back. Once you get all those out of the way, you can pop this off. Okay, so here's the controller ports, and right here is the main jumpers that tell this console what region it's in and what video the frequency of the video is, and if it's a 50 Hz or a 60 Hz, and if it's Japanese or English. That's all controlled right here. Basically, you have up to 4 combinations. So here we have basically 4 sets of jumpers. Okay, basically this is all just the ground, or it's all the common part of the jumpers here. And as you can see, there's little lines going across. We've got jumper 1, jumper 2, jumper 3, jumper 4. Jumper 1 and jumper 2 controls whether this is English or Japanese, and jumper 3 and jumper 4 control whether or not this is 50 Hz or 60 Hz. Now I don't know if you can see this in the video, but there's actually a small trace running across here and here. So once again, this is the English jumper, and this is the 60 Hz. This is an English 60 Hz, an NTSC. This is an American Genesis console. Now, I'm not going to worry about the 50-60 Hz mod right now. So there is a contact running across here. Like I said, you can't really see it in the video, but all we're going to want to do is basically cut it off or scrape it out until we break that connection. Then we're going to need a simple 2-way switch, a 3-pole switch, where we're going to have the ground on here, because this is all the common area, and we're going to have one side of the switch here and one side of the switch here, and you'll be able to switch English or Japanese. Cool. So all we're going to do is we're going to scrape here until we break the connection here. Okay, so you're going to solder 3 wires here. Of course, on the common side, it doesn't matter where you solder this one. I don't think it really makes a difference. I just soldered it onto the top. I guess that's the Japanese ground. And then you're going to have one wire going to the Japanese signal and one going to the American signal, or the English. Okay, now the only thing you need to really keep track of is which wire is on this side, which wire is on the ground side here. The other two you don't necessarily have to keep track of because it's going to depend on how you wire up the switch. So I've marked this one. Okay, so this is the switch that I picked up. But this is a special switch because, well, for one, I wanted it to be one of these metal toggle switches with the round mounts. These are really easy to mount because you basically just have to drill a hole and then put the thread through it and clamp it on. So it's really easy to mount this type of switch. But the important thing is this is not an on-off switch, okay? This is what they call an on-on switch. So the actual switch here has two positions. There's no center position, okay? So it's like an on-off switch in that there's, you know, two positions. But if you look on the other end, it's got three contacts, okay? The center one's basically the ground, and when you have the switch, you know, to the left, it's basically going to bridge the ground in this left contact. And when we have the switch over to the right, the ground with the right contact. So the switch is on in either position, it's just on to a different side. And if you remember the wiring, we had three wires, and the one going to the ground, I said we had to remember this one wire, and I labeled that wire. So that wire has to go into the center one, and as far as the other two wires go, it doesn't really matter. This is the perfect spot because, you know, there's basically just a big blank empty spot here. Perfect spot right there to mount the switch. So we'll find the proper size drill bit, and so there's the switch mounted, and now we'll just solder the wires to it. So with the system back together, you can see we have a simple two-way switch on the back, and now I can finally show you what it does. I have Streets of Rage out here for a reason. This is one of the games off the top of my head that I know is going to show you what this is doing. Okay, so let's put this in and turn it on. So here we can see in the intro, it's all in English, as you would expect. Okay, if I hit start, we see the title screen, Streets of Rage. Okay, now I'm going to turn it off. I'm not going to change the cartridge. I'm just going to flip the switch back here. Okay, and now turn it back on. Same game. And what the heck? Now it's all in Japanese. Okay, I'm gonna hit start, and now you can see the title doesn't say Streets of Rage. It says Bare Knuckle. Okay, a lot of these games, what they did was, instead of making a ROM for the Japanese market and then making a separate one for the English market, they put both the English and the Japanese in the cartridge. And it was up to the game, or the cartridge, to decide if this was an American system and show the English, or if this was a Japanese system and show the Japanese. This game in Japan was called Bare Knuckle, so they even put the Bare Knuckle title screen in there. Now, you might be thinking, that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Who cares if you can make Streets of Rage say Bare Knuckle? But that's not really the main purpose to do this mod. The main purpose to do this mod I can't show you because I don't have any Japanese games that would not work. But actually what I do have is an American game, and I'm going to give you an example. Okay, here is Street Fighter 2, so I'm going to pop that in. And here it's saying it's for an American system only. This is still in the Japanese mode, and we put an American game in essentially what it thinks is a Japanese system. Okay, so once again, if we turn it off, flip the switch back, now it's going to work, of course. Now, I don't have any Japanese games that don't play in an American system. A lot of Japanese games, if you're an importer and you want to play all the Japanese games, you might get a Japanese game that you put in your American Genesis and it comes up on the screen and says you can't play it. It has to be in a Japanese system. So that's why you'd want this mod. You'd flip that over into Japanese mode and then the Japanese games would play. So it kind of has, you know, a few little neat purposes with Streets of Rage, and you can see what games have Japanese titles and stuff like that. But mainly you do this to play Japanese games and American games on the same system.